Somewhere over the Middle East, in the spring of 2013, a U.S. naval jet was tracking something. The object had 8 points. It moved erratically. It left a fine trail of exhaust behind it. The United States Central Command filed the footage with the Pentagon's Anomaly Office, where it was classified and remained classified for 13 years. On May of 2026, the White House finally posted it. Some of the files include a football-shaped object near Japan, a formation of unidentified objects over the Persian Gulf, and a strange phenomenon captured during Apollo 12. In February of 2026, the President of the United States ordered the newly renamed Department of War to declassify every government file related to unidentified aerial phenomena. 11 weeks later, they launched a website. They called it Pursue. The files came from 4 agencies: the Department of War, the FBI, NASA, and the State Department. In a few weeks, over 1 billion visits were logged. The reported cases come from many different parts of the world. Some of the files are recent, others go back decades. Some have been classified for 75 years, and in 82 years of records, a pattern emerges. You may notice something. This is not that random. Most cluster around places where the United States and its rivals keep their most sensitive infrastructure. Specifically, their nuclear weapons. Sandia, Los Alamos, Malmstrom, Pantex. For 76 years, unexplained objects have appeared near these places. The pattern is older than the files themselves. In October of 2023, over the Aegean Sea, a U.S. military aircraft picked up something on its sensors. A small object, just above the waterline. The object was moving at about 80 miles per hour. Slow for a flying vehicle. But then, something happened that no aircraft should be able to do. It turned, at 90 degrees, with no banking, no arcing, no deceleration. Just turn. On the left is the demonstration of how an aircraft normally turn. They bank, tilt their wings, and curve through the air. A 90-degree turn, at this speed, would require something else entirely. Forces that no known aircraft can survive. The math is straightforward. At 80 miles per hour, which is about 35.8 meters per second, turning sharply with a generous 10-meter radius. The centripetal acceleration would be 128 meters per second squared. That is roughly 13 Gs. For comparison, trained fighter pilots in specialized pressure suits can sustain about 9 Gs for a few seconds. Beyond that, they black out. The Aegean Sea footage is not the only physics problem in the archive. In March of 2022, over the Pacific, something stranger happened. A U.S. Navy aircraft, flying near a surface submarine, recorded what appeared to be a small object dropping out of the sky. But it didn't crash. It entered the water and kept moving. Water is roughly 800 times denser than air. An object entering water at speed should slow dramatically, or break apart. The footage shows no impact, no splash, no deceleration. Whatever it is, ignores the physics it should be obeying. In February 2023, a US F-16 was scrambled over Lake Huron. The pilots identified it as a UAP, they got authorization, and they shot it down. The missile used was AIM-9X Sidewinder. The cost? $400,000. Debris fell into the Lake Huron. Recovery was attempted, but never found. The Pentagon's own classification notes were clear about what the debris was. Their conclusion? A spy balloon. 8 days earlier, a Chinese surveillance balloon had drifted across U.S. airspace. It was tracked from Alaska to South Carolina before being shot down off the coast. 4 objects were intercepted within days. Lake Huron was one of them. Remember this footage? For a long time, it had no good explanation. Until last year. Dr. Sean Kirkpatrick, until recently the director of AARO, the Pentagon's official UAP investigation office, explained it in an interview with NBC News. His assessment, it's probably a hot jet engine, producing a diffraction pattern. Apollo astronauts famously reported seeing flashes of light during their missions, even with their eyes closed. For decades, this was unexplained. It turns out, they were actually seeing cosmic rays, high-energy particles, passing directly through the optic nerve. But here's the thing. After all the balloons, all the camera artifacts, all the optical effects, some cases remain unsolved, unexplained, quietly waiting. In the summer of 1950, at Los Alamos National Laboratory, a physicist named Enrico Fermi sat down to lunch. He was one of the architects of the atomic bomb. Casually, he and his colleagues began doing math on something else. The math was simple. The galaxy is old, enormous. By any honest reading of chemistry and time, life should have arisen many times, long before us. And Fermi looked up from his lunch and asked the question that has haunted physics for 75 years. The math was loud, but the sky, at every wavelength we can scan with every instrument we have built, was silent. No signals, no probes, and no messages. For 11 years, Fermi's question went unanswered. Scientists circled it. They could not solve it. But it had ceased being just a conversation. It was becoming a problem. In 1961, an astronomer named Frank Drake invited a small group of researchers to a radio observatory in Green Bank, West Virginia. The agenda had one item. The agenda was a question. Was there a serious scientific way to estimate how many civilizations exist in our galaxy? Drake gave them an equation. Drake's equation breaks the question, are we alone, into 7 smaller questions. The rate of star formation, the fraction of stars with planets, the fraction with habitable planets, the fraction where life develops, where intelligence arises, where civilizations broadcast, and how long they last. Plug in pessimistic estimates, and the equation predicts we are alone. Plug in optimistic estimates, and the answer is we are surrounded. Same equation, same logic. The answers differ by more than 1 billion-fold. The Drake equation doesn't tell us how many civilizations exist. It tells us something more important, how much we still don't know. Over the decades, physicists have proposed 3 serious answers to Fermi's question. The rare Earth hypothesis says one of Drake's variables is wrong. The conditions for life, let alone intelligence, are so improbable that we are, in practice, alone. The Great Filter hypothesis says civilizations do arise, but somewhere between single cells and broadcasting signals, There is a barrier, almost no species survives. The dark forest hypothesis is more disturbing. The universe is full of civilizations. They have heard us, and they have chosen, every one of them, to stay silent.